Aha, we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest episode of the Women in Power Active, a project to help women reach their fitness goals through sharing information and discussing obstacles which often snag us in our pursuit of active, healthy lifestyles. I'm Amy Moritz, and I'll be your moderator again this month. Please follow along on Twitter at URSportswear and tweet your questions using the hashtag StrongWomen. So any questions you have for our guests or any words of wisdom you want to share, we'd love to hear from you. Our guests tonight, we're so excited to have Pam Reed with us. Pam, of course, is the first woman to be the overall winner of Badwater in 2002, repeated again in 2003. Among her list of accomplishments, she's run 300 miles without sleep, which took her 80 hours, holds a number of distance records. She's basically the queen of distance running, of ultra running. A legend when it comes to that. So we're so excited to have you with us, Pam. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Great. And so what attracted you? You've done so much in ultra running and distance running. What is it that attracted you initially to doing ultra running?
The reason I started was my husband is a CPA, and he had a client that was 60 years old, and he was running the Leadville 100-mile run. And all I remember saying is, that is absolutely crazy. And then I met him. His name was Benny Linkhart, and he took us for a run, and we ran a 17-mile loop in Tucson. And it just the way he showed us how to do it was so easy. I mean, we walked up the hills, and he just was really relaxed about it. So it didn't have the same vibe like a marathon or the training. So that's really how I got it started.
And so what then attracted you to keep doing it? That's how you kind of got started. What attracted you and kind of kept you going?
Well, we started, so after we went on that 17-mile run, my husband, it was always kind of him, honestly. He goes, well, let's sign up for this. There was a 100K race in Montana called Elkhorn, and it supposedly was a really tough one. So we both signed up and got dead last. And my husband's feet were totally blistered, and I was totally fine. And then right after that, he goes, well, let's sign up for, at the time, it was the hardest 100 called Wasatch 100. So we signed up for that, which was maybe a month and a half after Elkhorn. And he ended up dropping at mile 50, and I finished. And it was just the greatest experience. It took me forever. It took me like 32 hours. You have 36 to finish it. And the interesting thing about that is, at the time, I didn't know this was going to happen, but I've gone on to do that race 13 times. It was just a great experience. The people were nice. The aid station people were really cool. Pushing your body to that limit. It just, and I recovered fast. So I think it was all around a positive thing.
You mentioned the experience and ultra running such a community. Is that the type of thing that would keep you going, especially when you first started?
Absolutely. It's really interesting because, in other running, my experience, and most of my experience was 10K, 5K, and then I did a couple marathons. And people back then, I mean, this was back in the early 90s. It was so competitive, and ultras was more like, let's help each other out. And back to that first 100, I ran into a man because I was really sick. I was throwing up. I didn't think I would finish, and I ran into this man, and he wasn't feeling well either. And I said, well, can we just do this together? So we did the last 25 miles together, and that's the kind of camaraderie that you get in ultra running.
So you mentioned you had done a couple marathons, done a lot of 10Ks. When you started doing ultras, what was your training like, and how did you fit that in to your normal life?
It was interesting. I heard a long time ago that you only had to run, if you could run half the distance, you could do it. So what I did is, I did that 100K, and that was 62 miles. So then I figured, okay, I'm ready to do a 100-miler. So that's what I did. At the time, my husband and I were newly married. We had 4 children. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old. He had a 2 and a 3-year-old. So, and I taught a lot of aerobics. So it wasn't like I was going out on long runs. I never had the time. So I broke it up. I went on a couple runs. Like I'd wake up really early in the morning and run maybe 5 miles, and then I'd run another 5. And on weekends we would do some maybe longer ones. Like I said, that 17-mile loop, and we did that quite often. But that was pretty much my training. It was more in my head, because after I did the first 100, and I just knew I could do it, and it was a pretty good experience. As I said, it was positive. I mean, I got sick, but I learned that that's kind of part of it, unfortunately, and you can get through that, and that's what's amazing. Like the first one I did, I got sick, and I felt better, and at the end, I was so great. I had even forgotten I did anything. You know, the last 10 miles was like I just got up and started running 10 miles, so it was neat.
Yeah, and so when that first one that you had overall a good experience, but you struggled to finish it. And what were some of the things that you learned from that you then went on and had success at that distance?
Well, as the first, I went into an aid station at about it must have been mile 70, and I said I wanted to drop. I said, I can't do this. I'm sick. I don't feel well. And the guy goes, no, just go he let me go into his car. It was freezing. It was like 20 degrees outside. And so I sat in his car, and then he came back after 2 hours, and he said, okay, start going. Let's get going. So I started going, and it was, again, now it was probably 15 degrees out, and I just got so cold. I turned around. I came back. I sat back in his car till 6 a.m. in the morning. And then I took off, and I felt better, way better. I mean, I had some coffee, and then I took off, and I was able to. Then I ran into that man, Paul Schmidt, his name was. So what I learned was, are you still? Am I still on?
You're good. Yes, you're still here.
Good. Okay, sorry about that. So what I learned is that you can stop and you can start again. And I was able to stop and start again and be able to finish. So that was a big learning experience. That was one. Number 2 was this race, Wasatch, starts at 5 a.m. in the morning. So, I started again after my rest at 6 a.m. and I had until 6 a.m. the next day, or 6 p.m. until the next day. So it was a whole nother day. And when the sun came out, it felt great. I got to talk to this guy for, I don't know how many more hours we ran. And it was just such a great experience. So that's what I learned. I learned that ultra running is like a long process. It's not, something that just happens really quickly. So that was a huge learning experience. And like I said, I learned that I could do it on running a 62-mile run, and I felt really good the whole time. I mean, my body felt good. It wasn't that, my stomach didn't, but my body felt fine.
Well, we've got some questions that have come in from Twitter, so I want to ask you from Jennifer. She wants to know, how do you prepare mentally to run those types of distances? We talk about physical training, but how do you prepare yourself mentally for an ultra?
What I do is, and this has come naturally to me, because in high school, I was a gymnast, a cheerleader, but mostly in gymnastics. What came really natural is visualization. So if I can visualize something, I can do it. So, for instance, in the beginning, you said I ran the 300 miles. Mm-hmm. My husband had come to me and said, do you think you could run 300 miles without sleep? And I immediately said, I don't know. And the next day, I was out for a run, and I just started thinking about it. And honestly, it just popped in my head like, yeah, I think I can do that. And that's what's happened. And that's why I tell people, if you think you can do it, like if you can, and for me, again, it's just visualizing myself doing it, then you can do it. You have to really want to do it. And how do you prepare mentally? You have to know that it's not going to be easy. It absolutely is not going to be easy. You're going to be in some pain. So visualize that pain. I I have another story that my first Ironman ever, my husband had done Ironman Canada in Penticton, and we'd go on bike rides, and he would tell me about the whole race. He told me about the swim. I'd never been there, and I'd never done an Ironman before. He told me about the swim. He told me about the bike. He told me about going up the hills, coming down the hills, the run, how there was a hill in the middle of the run. Anyway, we get there, and I do the swim, and I did fine, and I get on the bike, and I felt amazing. I can't even explain how I felt, and I just rode and rode and rode, and I got off the bike, and I was third woman overall, behind Paula Newby-Fraser and Erin Baker, and at the time, they were the top pros, and I was in shock. I was in total shock, and I started running, and all I could do is wait for people to pass me because I thought, I don't belong here. But I ended up 9th overall. But that was pure visualization. So that's what I really try to, that would be what I would tell people, to try to visualize what you're doing and, learn about what you're going to go do, and, maybe look at pictures if you can, or ask people that have done it, and it's helped me a lot.
Great. Jennifer, thanks for the question. I want to remind people who are watching that you can tweet your questions for Pam Reed at UR Sportswear using the hashtag #StrongWomen. We have a question from Kara, who wants to know, what ultra race haven't you run that you would like to?
Well, I have not done Mont Blanc, and it's a process now, which was ironic because right after I won Badwater, I got invited to do that race. And I was doing so many events back then. I was doing 24-hour, 48 hours, that I really just had no desire to go over there. And so now I want to do that. So I have all the points. So this year I'm going to apply to do it, and we'll see. So that's one.
Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know another one. I would like to do the Greece one, Spartathlon, and that's on one of my. I don't really have a bucket list, but that's a race I'd like to do.
Excellent. As you've been doing this and over the years and training and racing long distances, what sort of issues, we all have those issues that kind of come up for us mentally and emotionally and physically as we're training. What sort of things in your journey, I know you've talked about this sometimes, have come up for you that you maybe didn't expect that racing and training brought out for you to have to deal with?
Well, one time, sometimes I have done not well by dealing with that. For instance, my husband had some major issue at his job, and I was in the middle of Western States 100, and in the middle of it, I just said, you know what, I can't do this. I cannot, there's too much going on, and I felt like it was the wrong time to be out running. So at that point, I dropped. So that was one of the drops that I've done. So that was a negative, but let's see, how have I, sometimes, having all the kids that I have, I'll be running along and they'll pop in my head, and something, if there's an issue with something in our life, and I'll start thinking about it, and I'll try to, I have to think about it and say, okay, I'm going to think about this later, because it's too difficult to try to run and think on some negative thoughts sometimes. So I've been able to put it aside sometimes. Sometimes I get to think about and work it all out, the whole problem, while I'm running. It just depends. Sometimes it's I haven't, like I've said, I failed, but some of those failures have been actually have learned the most on those, because then you kind of look back and you think, you know what, I probably shouldn't have started that race. I just should not have gone that time. Sometimes that's the right choice. So I think that's about it on that one.
Okay. I know that you've talked publicly, about dealing with anorexia and body image issues, and how How has that process been for you? Is that something that you feel comfortable now talking about?
Definitely. I've spoke about it. I've spoke to younger people about it. It I really thought there for a while I had it totally, completely licked, and I was just fine. And what I'm learning is as you get older, that thing, it's never going to go away. It's always going to be something that is going to be over here on the side, and I'm always it, it's it's something there, but I'm totally aware of it. So I think I have it under control, so to speak. But the body image, I have never, I mean, I've been hospitalized twice with anorexia, and I do not know what I look like. So I have to be on top of it, because what happens is, for instance, this year I have done so many races, way too many. So next year, I was just talking to a friend today. Next year, I got to dial it back. I mean, I did 6 Ironman. I did, oh my God, I don't even know, maybe 6 50-mile runs and 4 50Ks and marathons and Badwater and Zion 100, and I attempted another 100, Run Rabbit Run, right after doing an Ironman. So I have to I have to know my limits, and I sometimes I go a little past that, which I think I've done this year. So next year I'm going to dial it back.
Is there any reason that you think you maybe push your limits a little too far? I mean, there's obviously you push your limits far in the types of racing you pick to begin with, but in the amount of racing you did this year, is there a reason that you maybe push yourself a little too far and now you've got to dial it back?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think it was very subconscious this year, but my mother passed away in July. And, she was kind of passing away all year. And I think watching her made me feel like, okay, I've got to get in as much as I possibly can, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So I think I went overboard on that. And it's taken me till I just did my last Ironman like a week ago. I did Florida, and the whole time I was exhausted, and I still was able to do okay, but I was just exhausted mentally and physically. So that's all I can. I don't know for sure, but I think that's part of what happened was about my mom, and so that's why I just have to like get a handle on it and be aware, because sometimes because who I am. I mean, people ask me, like, the second I finished Badwater this year, somebody goes, so what are you doing next? And that's what people ask me all the time. So I always feel like, well, what am I going to do next? I have to have it all, figured out, and I don't have to. And I have to realize that I don't have to do a million events every year, and I can, just take it easy a little bit. And it's definitely not my personality, but I also want to be really healthy, which I am right now, which is just amazing. How great I feel. I mean, I'm a little tired, but overall my body feels really good, like it's not sore, which is weird, because in my 40s I was always sore, and now, the last 3 years I don't know, I've been doing hot yoga, and I guess that is really helping because my body feels really good.
Well, that's, and you mentioned about, feeling sore in your 40s, and I had heard that when you went to Kona this year with the Ironman World Championships, and you were there, that you saw all of these people and all these women who were just started maybe doing triathlon in their 60s, and that gave you a little bit of a different viewpoint on age and endurance sports.
Yes, it did. In Kona, it's such a unbelievable event. It's just all these people, the fittest of the fit, and from all over the world, and the best, at Ironman, and I mean they're just amazing. But so I was just about to get in the water, and there were all these women, and a lot of us were older where we were standing, so maybe all the younger ones were already in the water. I don't know, but this one woman, I went up to her and I said, "So, what age group are you in?" She goes, "The almost dead." She was 75 to 79, and I don't think she finished this year. It was one of the toughest years. This was my 5th time there, which is nothing compared to some of these people how often they've done it, but it was so windy. It was so challenging in the swim and the bike, and then the run was really nice because it got cloudy. But yes, it's it's such a strange venue there because there's women in their 60s, 65, 70, 75. I just did Florida, as I said, Ironman, and Madonna Bruder, 84 years old. She finished 5 minutes after the cutoff in Florida. And what was a little different, and I told her she should write to Ironman because Florida's swim was canceled. So it messed up everything kind of, and we did a time trial start. So the midnight start, they moved it they let everybody go till 12:24. I don't know where they came up with that number. I know they must have come up with it somewhere, but she finished at 12:29. She's 84, and next year she'll be 85. And the man, Lou, I can't think of his last name, but he finished under the cutoff, and he'll open up the 85 age group in Kona next year. It's unbelievable to me. This is shocking.
Wow. I want to ask you a little bit more about that, but first we've got a question from Twitter from Kara, who says that she's training for her first ultra next August, and she wants to know what your top tips would be for a newbie.
I guess she just said ultra, so I would say just different things, like if it's a 50 miler, I'll talk about a 50 miler. I would say, really, actually, for any of them, you just have to really dial it back. Do not get caught up in what other people are doing. Because even in a 100 miler, at the start of these things, like Western states, you would think they were running a 5K. I mean, people go off so fast. Everybody's hooting and hollering and yelling and, so up that I would say conserve your energy, go way slower than you would think, just be so comfortable. And my mentor, which was Benny Linkard, who I ran that 17-miler way back when, he said always, like, when you get to mile 50 of the 100 or mile 25 of a 50, or so on and so forth, halfway through, you should feel like you really haven't done anything. Because you got halfway to go, and especially when you're new at it, it's such new territory for you that I would say to just take it really easy, learn how to eat food. I always recommend eating real food as opposed to trying to do a 100-mile run or a 50-mile run on goo. Goo, it's ironic because I was running Wasatch way back in the beginning, and the daughter of the man who invented goo, Laura Vaughn, was running, and she had it, and they called it guck or something. And she was eating this stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, how can you eat that? And obviously it's an amazing product. But I just started doing that last 3 Ironmans. I've done 44 Ironmans, and over half of them I've gotten sick. And the last 4 now, I've used goo in the run, and it's totally helped me. But an Ironman's a way different thing than I eat real food on the bike, and then on the run, I can't eat food anymore. So so that's what I would recommend, is to eat real food. And then when you can't eat real food, then try to just stick some kind of goo down you, because you absolutely need fuel. And once if you've gotten sick and you can't get any solid food, then I would go back to that. Like, I'd start off with goo, and then I would end with goo. That would be what I would suggest.
Okay, right. She mentioned that it's a 50 miler that she's doing. So is there anything specific for the 50-mile distance that you would recommend?
Yeah, I would say hopefully she's run a marathon. I'm just assuming. And if you run a marathon, it's just for mental. Again, that's the halfway point, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And a 50 miler, walk, run it. It's totally doable. I really believe anybody that is run a marathon can run a 50 miler. Truly, I truly believe that. And so just have fun with it. Don't try to do a specific time. Just, go out and really enjoy yourself and look around a little bit. Not too much, because if it's a trail, you might fall. Don't fall. So that's what I would say. You really want to you gotta enjoy it, but on a trail, you also have to watch where you're running, because it's easy to trip and fall.
Great. And Kara, thank you for the question. So reminding people watching us that you can ask your questions via Twitter with the hashtag #StrongWomen, or visit the UR Sportswear handle to ask your questions also. So Pam, we have been talking a little bit about when you were at Kona and some of these Ironmen and Iron Women and seeing them succeed in their 80s. What does that kind of show you about maybe the limits that we put on ourselves about age and what we can do?
Well, what's funny about that is when I was 45, so when I was 40 is when everything great happened to me. I won Badwater at 40, at 41. I ran my fastest marathon. I ran a 2:59 at 40. And then I got to 45, and I thought, oh, cool, 45, it's going to be so great. And back then, I didn't do very many Ironman. So, when you're doing a lot of ultras, there aren't any real age groups there. So, it was kind of like you had to do, you're just women, women against women, or, I was lucky enough to overall win Badwater. But, basically, you're going against all the women and not just your age group. But when I got to 45, for some reason, I just started feeling old. And I kept saying, oh, I'm old and I'm slow and I'm old. And I kept telling myself that. And guess what? That's what happened to me. I became old and slow. So when I turned 50, I decided, you know what? That's out the window. I'm not thinking about age anymore. And I haven't. And it's totally changed for me. That my attitude changed about age. I don't think about it at all. And, my body's felt really good, because I've been lucky enough to find this hot yoga, and it's, like I said, it's really changed my life. And we live full-time in Jackson Hole, Wyoming now, and there's an acupuncturist here I see, and I get massage. So I'm blessed. I'm very blessed that I'm lucky enough to be able to do, massage and acupuncture and hot yoga, and I have the lifestyle that I'm able to do that, where I put on the Tucson Marathon, and I don't have to go to work like most normal people. I still get up really early in the morning. I run with a friend, but that's my first run at 5:30 in the morning. But yeah, so I just don't think about age. And that's what I would tell people. It's when you start thinking about it, which happened, like I said, at 45, it was just a negative, and it just became in my head like, that's what I became what I kept saying. So I would just say, the positive talk is there is a lot to it.
That's, and just get back to some of the advice that you have been giving about running an ultra, and you were talking about, real food as much as possible. That seems to be something that everybody, no matter what distance, if you're running any kind of distance or doing any kind of triathlon, that always seems to be, you can have your training down, and that's the part that's always in flux as to getting that nutrition down right. And how has that been a process for, it sounds like it's been a process for you as well.
Oh, it's a huge process, and it's a never ending process, because you can think it's going to be, you think you have it figured out, and you'll go to the next race, you'll do the exact same thing, and it doesn't work. So it's an ongoing process. I think what happens is that you have, it's the weather, it's the course, it's on any given day how you feel at any given time. So I honestly, I don't think anybody is ever really going to ever figure it out. It's an ongoing process. So and you can certainly, if it works one time, I would certainly say do it the next time. But if it doesn't work, then you might have to just not, change it up again.
You had mentioned the marathon. Tell us a little bit about the projects that you're working on now.
Well, I own and put on the Tucson Marathon, and that's December 7th. And we started a 5K, 10K, and a 1 mile for kids on Saturday. So we have Saturday and Sunday, and the Saturday events is really cool. We give 500 free entries to the kids for a 1 mile. This year we're adding an obstacle course, so it's a 1 mile competitive run and a 1 mile obstacle course. And then we have a 5K and a 10K, and it's cool. It's at the University of Arizona, and they have a 1 mile loop. So, the 5K is 3 times around, the 10K is 6 times around. The marathon is kind of my baby. I started it this year, will be 21 years. It's a downhill marathon. And then and the half is, honestly, I think it's one of the fastest halves in the country. And it's cool to do a half that's connected to a marathon because you get a lot of aid stations. And then I put on and own, with a partner here in Jackson, a half marathon in June 15th. And it's really pretty. You've got the Tetons right here. And so we give them because we have a sponsorship here, we help them go on a whitewater rafting trip after the race if they want to do that, and it's kind of cool. So those are the 2 things I'm doing. There's always one thing that I have in my mind, but I don't know if I'm going to do it, is I want to run across America, break the women's record. What makes me nervous about that is a lot of people, including Marshall Ulrich, who I've talked to, who's done it, their body's kind of never the same after that. And, I feel really good right now. I don't know that I want to jeopardize that. But, this year I put in for Western states. I'd like to do that again. I've done that 6 times. So if I could get back into that, maybe I would try to go for 10 on that. I just finished my 10th Badwater. So I have, 10 Badwaters, 10 Wasatches. Well, I actually have 13 Wasatches. I have 6 Leadvilles, so I might want to do that. There's all sorts of things up in the air, but it's just I'm so grateful to feel as good as I feel right now.
You've mentioned a number of races that you've gone to many times, and I want to go back to. Is the race different for you every time you do it?
Yes, except for, what, I really want to go back to Western because that was when I was younger. I did those. I stopped doing those. I haven't done Western, gosh, I don't know, 10 years maybe. But every time I went there, I did it wrong. I would go way too fast. Everything what I just told that lady not to do. I went out way too fast, and I would blow up. So I really want to go and do that differently, and I honestly think I could do it faster at this age than I've ever done when I was younger. So we'll see what happens.
When you're feeling so good and you recover well, can you tell us a little bit about your recovery? Obviously, you go you have a lot of races and you pack a lot in, but what do you do to help your body recover and repair and get ready for the next event or training block?
I'm just so lucky that my body just bounces back. So the day after I do any of these things, including Badwater, I go run, and it just starts a process quickly. As I'm getting older, Badwater, every year it's taken a little bit longer. Like the first year, maybe 4 days to recover, and now it's taken me maybe 9 days to recover. Where I feel, because that race in particular just takes a lot out of me, like an Ironman. I've done back-to-back Ironmans. I've done one on one weekend and another on another weekend, and it's taken me, like, if it's let's say it's a Sunday race, I'll feel maybe I could race by Friday. But I'm really lucky. And what do I do? I eat a little bit more. I sleep a little bit more, but not much. Like I said, I'm so blessed that I can come back pretty quickly. One thing I did a couple years ago, because normally I don't get massage right after. I try to let my body, recover. And I had done a 100-mile run on a road here, the Teton. It was from West Yellowstone to Riggs, Idaho, which is right over the hill, and from Jackson Hole. And I had this weird thing in my Achilles, and I went and got acupuncture and massage, and I did it too quick, and I won't do that again. So my recommendation for my body is that I think you just kind of let it get to where then I could get a massage maybe a week after, not a day after. For me, that's just for me. So those are a couple tricks that I've done, but otherwise, I said, I've just been lucky, I think.
Well, to do Ironman on back-to-back weekends, I don't think there are many people who could attempt that, let alone complete them. That's quite a bit. As we're kind of getting ready to wrap up here. What women who are watching, and we have women who are just starting and trying to get fitness and active and be active in a healthy, active lifestyle, to people who are training for their first ultra or competitive marathoners. So we kind of have a gamut here. But what do you want women who are active, who are running, who are doing endurance sports, from your experiences? What do you most want them to know that maybe you've learned that you think that you would want to teach them?
I would say that you can do anything you want to do. But that's the key, is you really have to want to do it. Yeah. And when you want to do it, it just, in your mind, you can do it, and you just prepare your mind for it. The mind is a very, very powerful thing. It's your body has to do it, but it's just amazing what we can do through our minds, and that's proven every day. When in Kona this year, I was running, and there was a guy ahead of me. I saw him. It was starting to get a little dark, and I just noticed him ahead, and he didn't have any legs. And I looked at him, and I started running toward him. And right before I got to him, he had no legs. He was running on 2 prosthetics. There was a guy I passed with 1 leg. And it's just shocking to me how people can do it. Like, if those people can do it, we can do it. And it's never ending. You just the minute you feel like, oh, I can't do it, you don't have to look too far to see somebody who has it way worse off than we do, that's actually doing these things. And so that's motivation for me, and hopefully it would be motivation for other people.
Well, it's motivation for me, for sure, and so inspiring. And I want to thank Pam. I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing a little bit of your stories and your knowledge with us here. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. Maybe I'll be back sometime.
We would love to have you back some other time. So I'm going to sign off for the women, You Are Sportswear. I'm getting all discombobulated here, sorry. For the Women in Power Active, and for You Are Sportswear, and for Strong Women Everywhere. I want to thank you all for joining us, and this will be archived, and to keep checking back for when our next live chat will be, to help you continue with your own active, healthy lifestyles. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.